Coming up next, we're returning to our Taboo Songs countdown where we cover the most controversial tracks that either sparked outrage back in the day or modern audiences have tried to cancel. We've done a lot of episodes on this. It's become one of our most popular series on here. But today we're at it again. This time around, though, I'm covering probably one of the most famous controversial tracks ever. We're really turning up the heat. We've got the truly strange story of the legendary guitarist whose distorted guitar tune became the only song in American history to be all-out banned from radio, despite having zero lyrics. It was just too sinister for listeners, so they banned it. Then there's the story of the singer who was banned by the U.S. Navy after recording a music video with most of her clothes off on a naval ship. Not only did she receive a naval ban, but she got everyone else banned as well. And then there's the story of the controversial track that inspired a radio station, BOMB Threat. Can't say it on here. And then the high schooler took his principal hostage and forcibly played that song over the school's PA system. They're the songs that provoked outrage, and they were just deemed too dangerous for the public. Find out which one tops the list coming up next on Professor of Rock. Hey, music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. You know, if you remember playing Hangman with schoolmates back in the day, you're going to dig this channel of deep musical nostalgia. Actually, I saw some little kids playing that the other day, and I was like, oh, that's cool. Make sure to subscribe below right now and click the bell so you know when stuff comes up. All right, so let's get into our Taboo Songs countdown. This one's good. There's some really good ones on this one. So in at number 7, I've got the only instrumental ever to be banned from radio in the U.S. I'm talking about Rumble by Link Wray. The father of distortion and fuzz, Link Wray was born in 1929 and put together a rock career that spanned decades. But his legend is tied almost entirely to one 2.5-minute instrumental track from 1958, Rumble. After serving in the Korean War, Link Wray returned home and formed a band with his two brothers and some of their friends. They called themselves Lucky Ray and the Lazy Pine Wranglers. Pretty cool name. They later changed it to Lucky Ray and the Palomino Ranch Hands. Around 1957, the band was focused in on country dances and rock and roll sock hops in the Washington, D.C. area. One night in 1957, at a record shop in Fredericksburg, Virginia, Link Wray improvised what would become his most famous work. His boss, a local DJ named Milt Green, wanted the band to play something that people could do the stroll to. And, it was the newest dance craze then. Let's go once more. But Link Wray didn't know the chords to that recent song of the same name by the Diamonds, so he just started messing around on his guitar. That's how it goes, right? Then someone grabbed a mic and stuck it up to one of the amps, and this created the tune's signature distortion on accident. The crowd went crazy, and they started chanting, "Play that weird song!" That's what they said. Play that weird song. Link Wray and his band played their new creation 4 times in a row just to satisfy the audience. They wanted more and more. But when Link Wray went into the studio later to capture that same magic, he actually hit a wall. Said Link about it, and I quote, "When we went to record it, I didn't get that live sound like I did in Fredericksburg originally. But he came up with a brilliant solution. He said, I got a pen, and I started punching holes in the tweeters. I didn't mess with a big speaker. I started playing, and I got that distorted sound, plus I had a tremolo. I used a combination of that at the end." Now get this, the song was originally called Oddball, but when Phil Everly of the Everly Brothers heard those game-changing 2 minutes and 25 seconds, he said, you got to change it to something that captures that street fight vibe in it. Rumble. Released in April of 1958 as Rumble by Link Wray and his Rayman, the track became a major hit in stores and, of course, on the jukeboxes that spring and summer. But it was not a hit on radio. Even though Rumble contained 0 lyrics, radio stations across America banned it outright. At the time, the nation was anxious about sudden spikes in juvenile delinquency and this new rock and roll music that was coming out, and censors were eager to stamp out anything that would be an instigator. Rumble's incendiary title, combined with its distorted sound, made it incredibly anti-establishment. They were scared of it. Radio programmers feared that gritty guitar tone and those power chords. They thought it would incite teenage street gangs and lead to real-life rumbles. Now, to this day, Rumble remains the only instrumental song in the history of our country ever banned from the airwaves solely for its dangerous, menacing sound and its title. No words necessary here. Now, despite the ban, though, Rumle endured and influenced many musicians of every generation. Pete Townsend said it was the reason he picked up a guitar. Bob Dylan called it the greatest instrumental ever. Bruce Springsteen, Paul McCartney, the Kings, Jimmy Page, and Jimi Hendrix, they all praised it. After Rumle, Link Wray recorded smaller hits. There was Rawhide in '59. But he never repeated that initial success. Didn't matter, though. That one song laid the groundwork for a million punk and metal works to come after that. Coming in at the number 6 position, we've got the biggest rebel that we've ever had on this countdown. Believe it or not, it's Cher. This time it's If I Could Turn Back Time.
If I could turn back time.
Now, bear with me for a second. Cher's been more featured than anybody on our Taboo Songs countdown. She actually has 3 #1 hits she can no longer play, including 2 I can't even say on here.
How free, that's all I ever heard. This child say please, but even from the people of God, lady laughed and danced and lit the candles one by one.
Born Sherilyn Sarkeesian in 1946, Cher moved to Hollywood at 16 with dreams of making it big. Of course, she married Sonny Bono, and together they became household names co-hosting the Sonny and Cher Comedy Hour. And after the show ended, and of course her marriage to Sonny dissolved, Cher continued releasing albums through the 70s and into the 80s. Written by hitmaker Diane Warren, Turn Back Time would become Cher's second consecutive adult contemporary #1 hit. This was following her duet with Peter Cetera, After All. I love that song. Released June 20th of 1989, If I Could Turn Back Time also climbed to #3 on the Billboard Hot 100, making it her highest charting single of the 80s. The song went top 10 in the UK, and Canada, and Australia, and throughout Europe. It was a huge song, of course. However, it was the song's music video, more than anything else, that would go down in history and get this song banned. For this one, Cher collaborated with the U.S. Navy and planned to film the video aboard the USS Missouri, the legendary battleship nicknamed Mighty Mo. Now, this wasn't just any ship, for those of you who know. It was where the Japanese forces surrendered in 1945, officially ending World War II. Big deal. The plan was to have Cher serenade, give or take 200 actual sailors while the ship was docked in Long Beach, California. That was the plan. The Navy was all in on this because they believed it could create a recruitment boost for the armed services. However, nobody in the Navy's liaison department bothered to ask what Cher would be wearing for this music video. Over the July 4th weekend in 1989, Cher boarded the ship for filming, wearing a sheer fishnet bodysuit with a black leather jacket, garter belt, and boots. The outfit was so transparent you could actually see the tattoos on her backside. Only a single piece of black cloth prevented the full-on reveal. A Navy representative named Steve Honda, he was watching the filming. So man, when he saw Cher's costume, he straight up panicked, and he insisted director Marty Callner tell her to change. Callner replied, "You go tell her she can't wear it." Of course, Steve Honda, he declined. Now, once the video started airing, all hell broke loose. Veterans were furious. The Pentagon was outraged. The general public flooded MTV and the Navy with complaints. Navy Lieutenant Commander A.J. Dooley claimed the production hadn't disclosed plans for Cher's revealing appearance, and he blamed it on a last-minute costume change. Here's the thing. A Geffen Records spokesperson fired back saying that Navy personnel had seen the storyboards, including one showing Cher and the see-through ensemble, and raised no objections at all at that point. MTV, they were actually caught off guard too. Said programming VP Abby Konowich, "When we accepted it, we felt it was borderline, but then we received a great deal of negative feedback from the audience." So initially, MTV banned the video outright. However, they eventually agreed to air it, but only after 9 p.m., kind of the Madonna hour, right? Now, adding to the controversy, some communities in America even campaigned to remove MTV from their cable networks entirely. It was a huge mess. Now, Cher attempted damage control by filming additional footage in a less revealing outfit without the crew present. She was still sitting with one of the ship's massive guns between her legs, so that didn't really help. It was too little too late, though. The controversy had already exploded. As a result, the Navy decreed that they would never again allow musicians to film music videos on U.S. Navy ships. But for Cher, the scandal, it was rocket fuel. The controversy made the video impossible to ignore, and If I Could Turn Back Time became one of the biggest hits of her entire career, and it was really because of that video. All right, we've made it to number 5 on the countdown, and I've got Foster the People with Pumped Up Kicks. Now, Foster the People started as a solo project for Mark Foster, a Los Angeles-based musician who had been grinding away writing jingles for commercials before enlisting bassist Cubby Fink and drummer Mark Pontius to form the full band. The trio created Pumped Up Kicks, and as a brand new band with only one completed song, they posted it on their website. This is a free download. And as soon as they did, the track took on a life of its own, spreading across the internet like wildfire. I remember the first time I heard this, I'm like, that's a #1 hit. Independent radio stations picked it up first, and then mainstream stations followed, and the song was released on September 14, 2010. The band's debut album, Torches, dropped on May 23, 2011, and Pumped Up Kicks became an inescapable summer anthem. Really, that's one of the best albums of that year. The production was deceptively upbeat. It was catchy, it was danceable, it was infectious, but the lyrics told a dark story. Mark Foster had written the song from the perspective of a disturbed teenager contemplating, I have to be careful how I cover this on here, but he's contemplating hurting many of his classmates in a sinister way. Foster explained, and I quote, "I wanted to get into the kid's mind like Truman Capote did in Cold Blood. I really like to get inside the heads of other people and try to walk in their shoes." Now, the song's title referenced expensive Reebok pump basketball shoes from the early 90s.
Pump for cross-training. Pump for aerobics.
In the song, these kids with their pumped up kicks became the targets of an isolated psychotic teenager's violent fantasies. Mark Foster considered writing from the victim's perspective, but he felt it would be kind of a cop-out. Importantly, there's no actual violence in the song. It's all the kid's internal monologue, just his thoughts that we're hearing. Now that juxtaposition, right? The dark, dark subject matter wrapped in this infectious pop melody, it made Pumped Up Kicks a lightning rod for controversy. MTV censored the word, which I have to censor it on here, G-U-N and bullets, whenever they played the video. Foster called out the hypocrisy, though, saying, "You got reality shows about teenagers getting pregnant and Jersey Shore showing a girl getting punched in the face over and over as a teaser. Domestic violence, that's fine, but talking about family values, teen isolation, and bullying is not." The controversy exploded after a real-life tragedy at the one in Sandy Hook in December 2012. Radio stations yanked Pumped Up Kicks from the airways from there. Actually, Mark Foster agreed with the decision out of respect for the victims. In a statement, he explained, "I wrote Pumped Up Kicks when I began to read about the growing trend in teenage mental illness. I just wanted to understand the psychology behind it because it was terrifying how mental illness among youth had skyrocketed. This song was written to create ongoing dialogue for an issue that was being talked about but largely ignored when it came to government intervention." Here's what else Mark told me about this song when I interviewed him.
The other really, interesting thing, for me kind of during that time was just I think kind of the hypocrisy too, where it was just it was the fact that the song was done by a band that felt breezy and summery that I think made people angry. Yeah. Because it's wait, you turn on you listen to hip hop, it's turn on the stations, but they've been talking about stuff way right. On the nose, I'm actually gonna kill, I killed this guy last night, crazy misogynistic lyrics and crazy violent lyrics that are held to a completely different standard. Yeah. Which I found was really interesting that that world basically had carte blanche to be able to talk about anything that they wanted. It could be, it could be the most extreme version of violence, but because the song had guitars in it,
and because it had that just really smooth
had a breezy
kind of
melody,
yeah, exactly,
that it was held to a different standard. So I find it all interesting, Yeah, I love the controversy. All
right, heading into the number 4 spot, I got a female singer who has thrived on controversy throughout her career. For this one, I got Madonna with "Papa Don't Preach," a song that actually offended both sides of the aisle.
Papa don't preach, I'm
into 1986, Madonna had released two massive studio albums, Madonna in 1983 and Like a Virgin in 1984. Together, they would sell over 30 million copies worldwide, and between them, a rapid-fire string of top 10 smashes. There was Lucky Star, Borderline, Like a Virgin, Material Girl, Angel, Dress You Up. Add to that the #1 hit from Vision Quest soundtrack, Crazy for You, and Madonna had scored 7 top 10 hits on the Billboard Hot 100 in just 3 years.
Yeah, you must be my lucky star, pushing my love over the borderline. Like a virgin, living in the material world, and I am a material girl. Ooh, you're an angel. This is my love. I'm crazy for you.
Throw in pop culture moments like her performance of Like a Virgin at the MTV Video Music Awards, and of course her video for Material Girl, which mimicked Marilyn Monroe's blonde bombshell image, and her high-profile wedding to actor Sean Penn in 1985. And Madonna had definitely become a global icon. Everybody knew who she was. Tabloids made her famous, even the people who didn't know anything about music. Now, Madonna's third studio album, True Blue, was released on June 30th, 1986, and it continued her commercial tear through the 80s. The album scored 5 top 5 hits, including 3 #1s, and it supplied the controversy. Open Your Heart's music video, that was already causing outrage. But Papa Don't Preach caused a tidal wave. Released on June 11th of 1986, Papa Don't Preach ignited a major cultural firestorm by tackling the taboo subject of teen pregnancy. This is during the peak of the decade's culture wars. At the heart of the song is a young woman who confesses to her father that she's pregnant and that she intends to keep her baby. Addressing her father, played by Danny Aiello, she pleads for his support and his understanding, declares she's in trouble, but she's made up her mind. The subject matter, it was bold for the 80s at least, and contentious for sure.
Daddy, daddy, if you could only see.
Teenage pregnancy and abortion were explosive issues in the mid-80s, and Madonna's decision to address them both in this pop song, that was a very bold move. So much so that Papa Don't Preach actually offended both sides of the political spectrum. Pro-choice groups accused Madonna of glamorizing teen motherhood and encouraging teen pregnancy, while conservative critics were outraged by the song's frank discussion of premarital sex. According to Madonna, Papa Don't Preach is a message song that everyone is going to take the wrong way. She knew it. Immediately, they're going to say, I'm advising every young girl to go out and get pregnant, which I'm not. But instead of explaining what she had in mind when she wrote the song, she just left the message intentionally ambiguous. Madonna kept her focus on the emotional conflict between the protagonist's desire to make her own decisions and her fear of parental disapproval. This ambiguity allowed people to interpret it however they wanted, which only fueled the debate and, of course, sales of the record. It drove the song to #1 on the Hot 100, one of the biggest hits of the year. Additionally, Papa Don't Preach reached #1 on the main music charts in 14 countries, from Australia to the UK. She knew what she was doing.
Papa don't preach, I've been losing sleep.
All right, coming in #3, I've got Blink 182 with Adam's Song.
I never thought I'd die alone.
Blink 182 started in San Diego, and bassist Mark Hoppus moved there to study and connected with guitarist Tom DeLonge. They recruited drummer Scott Rayner and launched into a relentless gigging schedule on the local punk circuit from there. The self-released Flies Water EP dropped in 1993, followed by the cassette Buddha demo on Filter Records, pressed with less than 1,000 copies. Several tracks from that demo, though, ended up on their full-length debut, Cheshire Cat, released by Grilled Cheese in 94. Blink 182's commercial breakthrough, though, that came with 1997's Dude Ranch, which included the #11 alternative hit Damn It.
The faces on my own, well, I guess this is growing up.
After the album's release, founding member Rayner, of course, was replaced by Travis Barker, who appeared on their major label debut, Enema of the State. That one was released in June of '99. Enema of the State debuted in the US top 10 and sold over 1 million copies in just 2 months. The album was propelled by 2 highly catchy hits, What's My Age Again, and of course, All the Small Things, probably their biggest song ever. But that wasn't all that the album had to offer. Their third single was the emotionally complex Adam's Song. It would unintentionally become the band's most controversial song.
Everyone at my age, what's my age again? What's my age again? All the small things. You'll be sorry when I'm gone.
Okay, so Adam's song tells the story of a kid so low he contemplates taking his own life. Now, Mark wrote it during a lonely stretch on tour. While Tom and Travis both had girlfriends waiting for them at home, Mark didn't have anyone to go back to. Said Mark, and I quote, "I was lonely on tour, but then I got home and it didn't matter because there was nothing there for me anyway." The initial spark, that came from an email that Mark received, a letter a kid had written to his parents before taking his own life. And Mark and Tom got together and crafted this sad, slow track from there. Tom described it as a story of a kid not being happy in his life, crossed with the band being really lonely on tour. Now, the verses are pretty dark, with the narrator remembering all the times he'd screwed up, leading to his breaking point, where he resigns to his disturbing thoughts of taking his life, and, daydreams about what it might be like when he is gone. But by the end of the song's progression, it takes a lighter turn. The narrator begins to feel hopeful, and he chooses life. The closing lines make clear that Blink-182 intended this as the message of the song, a message of hope during really dark times. However, not everyone heard it that way. In May of 2000, Greg Barnes, a teenage survivor of the Columbine Massacre, took his own life with Adam's song playing on repeat. He'd lost a friend during that horrific tragedy a year earlier and felt a dark connection with this song. Now, the news devastated the band. Said Tom, and I quote, "It affected us really strongly because that song was a song of hope. When we were writing it, we knew specifically that we did not want kids to think taking your life was something that we thought was cool or rad. We didn't endorse it in any way at all." Mark reiterated on MTV in 2001 that the song's original intention was to provide a positive message about not taking your life, that life is meaningful. Still, critics jumped all over the tragic incident and argued that the dark lyrics were too impressionable for Blink-182's young fan base. So the band put a pause on performing Adam's song after 2004. They didn't start playing it again until 2009. However, after the death of their friend Adam Goldstein, they retired the song again. The group finally brought it back during their Kings of the Weekend Las Vegas residency that happened in 2018, and they played it periodically since then. When asked about reviving the song, Mark said, he'd found new meaning in it. I think it more now is a celebration of hardships gone through and friends lost. And for a lot of fans, Adam's song remains a light in the darkness, which is what they wanted in the first place. All right, we've made it to the number 2 position, the runner-up. And here I've got a band that I feel like should have been massive. They're amazing. Ecstasy with Dear God.
Dear God, sorry to disturb you, but
I had a couple of friends who would argue if it's XTC or ecstasy, just like, it doesn't matter, it's ecstasy. Anyway, Ecstasy formed in 1976 with the great Andy Partridge on guitar, Colin Moulding on bass, Terry Chambers on drums, and Barry Andrews on keyboards. They signed to Virgin Records and released White Music and Go 2. When Andrews quit rather than adapt to the band's evolving sound, Ecstasy made a pivotal decision. Instead of replacing him with another keyboard player, they added second guitarist Dave Gregory. That lineup would create the band's most beloved music, starting with 1979's Drums and Wires, which featured their first major hit, Making Plans for Nigel. Great song.
we're only making plans for Nigel.
Ecstasy started gaining traction from there. Black Sea followed in 1980, and then came English Settlement in 1982 featuring Senses Working Overtime. Then everything fell apart. During a 1982 Paris concert, Andy Partridge collapsed on stage and suffered a mental breakdown. According to the band's 1992 biography, Andy Partridge had thrown away his Valium supply just before the show, triggering a full-blown meltdown. A month later, he collapsed again from a stomach ulcer right before taking the stage at the Hollywood Palladium. The tour was canceled from there. Terry Chambers quit the band because touring had become impossible. Now, when the smoke cleared, Partridge made a stunning announcement. Ecstasy would never perform live ever again. Like the Beatles, they were now a studio-only band. A lot of people think these guys were like the Beach Boys of the 80s. Of course, Virgin Records wasn't thrilled with this arrangement, but Ecstasy stuck to their word. They released Mummer in 1983 and The Big Express in 1984, both of these without tour support. Then in 1986, they released Skylarking, their game-changing album. The lead single was Grass, but it was the B-side of that song that really caught fire. Dear God exploded on North American college radio stations. The demand was so intense that the album was reissued with Dear God including as a proper track. Though it didn't make much, of a mark on the US charts. Now, written by Andy Partridge from the perspective of a child questioning their creator, Dear God unleashed absolute chaos. The straightforward atheist lyrics were condemned as blasphemous, igniting a religious firestorm everywhere. Radio stations across America received furious calls. One station in Panama City, Florida even got a BOMB threat for playing the song. According to John Brody of Geffen Records, he said most programmers were afraid to put it on at all. Partridge was genuinely surprised by the uproar, though. He said, at first I thought it hadn't come out barbed enough. It's sort of banal. People shouldn't be annoyed by this tiny little soap bubble of an idea. But the controversy reached a shocking peak on May 4th, 1989 at Binghamton High School in New York. It's where an 18-year-old student walked into the principal's office with a weapon and held the secretary and assistant principal at bay, forcing them to play Dear God over the school's PA system. Students thought a criminal enterprise was attacking the school. Actually, another word would be used there, but I can't say it on here. Teachers locked down classrooms. Now, when police arrived, the student surrendered peacefully. He later said he wasn't sure what motivated his actions. He said he wouldn't ever do it again, but he was charged with criminal trespass, weapon possession, and menacing. Now, despite, or maybe because of all the controversy, Dear God became Ecstasy's most well-known song. I think we've all had dreams of trying to play that one song over the school's PA system.
Dear
All right, we've come to the number one position on our countdown, and this is one you're going to be shocked by. It's Africa by Toto.
I bless the rains down in Africa.
Let me explain. By the early 1980s, Toto was facing a crossroads. Their 1981 album Turn Back had flopped, failing to produce a single hit. Their label was breathing down their necks, demanding results. The band really needed to deliver, big time. So they responded in 1982 with Toto 4, and it was a knockout punch. The album went multi-platinum and swept the Grammys, winning 6 awards, including Album of the Year and Record of the Year, and it produced 3 top 10 singles, including the number 2 smash Rosanna, the number 10 I Won't Hold You Back, and of course our featured track, the number 1 smash Africa. Now, the creation of Africa started with keyboardist David Paich late one night. He'd been watching a documentary about suffering on the African continent, and he found himself inspired, wanting to do something positive. So using his new Yamaha CS80 synthesizer, he stumbled onto the song's signature brassy riff, and he wrote the chorus melody in about 10 minutes. David Paich later described the process as God channeling the song through him. Some band members initially dismissed the track as a little bit goofy or a little experimental, and it nearly didn't make the album. It was actually cut for a time. But Africa became the only Toto song to reach the top of the charts on the Billboard Hot 100 and remains an enduring part of their legacy, of course. Now, for decades, Africa was just another beloved 80s anthem, but then it started picking up big-time popularity in pop culture and became one of the biggest songs out there. So in the middle of their resurgence, in 2018, the song's cultural legacy started coming under fire. Rolling Stone took aim in their article how Toto's Africa became the new Don't Stop Believin'. It didn't hold back, calling the music video mind-blowingly racist. Criticism centered on how the video portrays the continent. The band sits in a library surrounded by stacks of books about Africa while an indigenous man stalks them through the shelves and before throwing a spear at a bookshelf. But the controversy goes deeper than just the video, apparently. Critics further argued the song itself reflects a problematic Western lens, resulting in vague mystical imagery that romanticizes the continent. Wild dogs crying out in the night, Mount Kilimanjaro rising above the Serengeti, which is actually geographically inaccurate.
Rises like Olympus above the Serengeti.
Then others criticized the line, "I bless the rains down in Africa," and said the song embodied a Western savior complex. Detractors cried cultural appropriation, that the band had created an ignorant depiction of Africa. Is this real? I mean, you really can't make this stuff up. However, David Paich, the song's co-writer of Toto's Africa, has consistently defended the song, emphasizing its sincere, well-intentioned origins. I've interviewed these guys. They're good guys. Come on. He explained that the lyrics were inspired by his childhood experiences at a Catholic school where missionaries shared stories of their work in Africa, and also by late-night documentaries depicting the continent's suffering and beauty, which moved and appalled him and left images that he just couldn't shake. He's described the song as expressing a man's love of a continent from the perspective of someone who had never visited Africa. Here's what else Toto told me about the song.
What was great about that is because most of the rest of the record was done, and I think all we were working on was this song. It's like, so someone would get an idea, let's get Tim Schmidt from the Eagles to come in and sing this part. Or let's get Joe Porcaro on flapamba or bass marimba to play this part. Then we start calling in and getting the exotic percussion.
Yeah, Emil Richards and all his stuff, you know.
One by one, guys start picking up their instruments. What's so great about Toto is their ability to self-arrange and self-produce these things, you know what I mean? No one tells him what part to play on that, or David Hungate what bass part to play, and it just kind of evolved while we were mixing our record, you know?
Yeah.
And it was one of those magical things, you know, you can't say, hey, well, we masterminded this to be a big single and saw the future.
No, I didn't hear it, man. I was going like,
none of us did really, you know?
They didn't even make the record, right?
No, because it's such a mid-tempo, it's kind of an easygoing thing. We had all these other, you know, the Rosannas and these, you know, big rockers on there. We thought, well, here's another little extra.
It was truly
cut,
a wild card song.
Yeah, yeah.
And then it ends up being the biggest song we've ever had. So what do we know, you know?
Certainly.
I was never one to pick the singles, you know.
You know, Africa I remember very well because I remember, and I didn't even know this about Luke. Luke has come out about this too. I just remember the whole time with Africa thinking, this does not belong on this album. This should not be on this record. It was kind of the last thing we'd working on. We'd already been working on all, you know, the whole thing. And my tune, we'd gone through all this stuff, all this stuff, and Africa was kind of this thing of David's. And I could tell David was way into it and really wanted to do it. And Jeff worked really hard on it. You know what I mean? Having said that, just because I didn't like the tune and because I didn't think it should be on the album doesn't mean I didn't kill myself on it. You know what I'm saying? We would really, like I said, again, just to finish up what I was saying about the guys, as hard as they could be on you working on their stuff, when it was my stuff, they all brought their A games. And I never felt for a moment that Lukather was just trying to get through my tune so he could get to work on one of his tunes. Everybody always brought it.
Gave it everything.
Everyone always brought it.
You can tell that with all you guys' songs. I mean, they're so
David would bring to my
meticulous.
songs.
Yeah. Well, there you have it. 7 songs that tick a lot of people off, offend people, their band, whatever. What do you think? What are some of these great songs? I can't believe Link Wray that they banned it, and it's an instrumental. It's pretty crazy. Let's have a great discussion below, celebrating these songs. And I think we're a little bit sensitive in these times, but nonetheless, love to have you. If you like our content, we invite you to subscribe. We'd love to have you as part of our community. Until next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends.